First of all, I would like to thank you for your time, making yourself available. I'm pretty sure that all of my audience and even the Brazilian community that is engaged with Power Platform is going to be very excited to hear about your project and all the capabilities of local era. So thank you, and the stage is all yours. Introduce yourself, and I'll be here. I'll try to be quiet, and if I have any questions, I'll try to deliver it.
Hey Leo, good to join you today. Unfortunately, look, my Portuguese is let's just say non-existent, so I can't speak in the audience's native language. So I'll leave any translation to you. But good to be on, and yeah, really looking forward to this session and talking some more about Lowcodera with you. So I'm in your hands. Feel free to ask any questions at any moment. And yeah, I'll be delighted to answer. So you mentioned about introductions, so I can quickly introduce myself to your audience. I'm Rahan Arif, here based in London in the United Kingdom. I've been a Microsoft consultant for the best part of 15 years, working predominantly to begin with Microsoft SharePoint, which then evolved more into a broader 365 role when 365 came out. And more recently, my focus has been on the Power Platform. And I've been involved in large-scale transformations for the last decade using the best of Microsoft technology. And certainly in the last 3 years, been doing a lot of Power Platform stuff on top of 365, and more to the point around Power Apps. And this is where this opportunity to bring out Lowcodera came from, and I'll be telling you a lot more about Lowcodera today. So that's a little bit about me, and obviously your audience knows who you are.
Yeah, yeah, they know. And at which point you realize that yeah, there was an opportunity in the market to leverage those kinds of components and accelerate the process. You were a developer yourself, and you were doing this to yourself, and you had the idea. How was that?
Well, first of all, I did actually start my early career as a developer, but I was a very bad developer, and I knew I had no chance in this space. So thank God for low code, and yeah, even before Power Platform, essentially, doing SharePoint development, lots of out the box configuration and building solutions was a form of low code development in some respects, because you could actually create whole apps in SharePoint with little to no programming whatsoever. And
Mhm.
of course, Power Apps hasn't actually been out for so long. And we've always known that for the last few years and the foreseeable future, in fact, I don't think it's ever going to, this deficit is ever going to be solved. There's not enough professional developers in the world to meet the demand that's out there for companies wishing to digitally transform themselves. And so it's actually not possible to fulfill that demand, which is why there's been this big boom in low code uptake, be it on the Microsoft platform or other providers. This low code space where citizen developers can build their own apps without any programming knowledge is has really taken off. And I could see that opportunity, growing in front of my eyes over the last 3 years, just by virtue of me being asked to build more and more apps. The customers that I work for really like the idea of Power Apps, and actually more to the point, what we are seeing is, 10 years ago, and still the case today, we're seeing very complex Excel spreadsheets, which people are very proud of with their macros and so forth. And one of the smartest things I think Microsoft did was to open source Power Effects, give it a name, and tell people, if you've got Excel skills, if you know how to create complex formulas or even basic formulas in Excel, you can bring that same knowledge across now to Power Apps. And so fast forwarding next few years, I very much see Power Apps becoming the modern day Excel, where people are now building these apps away from Excel and translating them into apps. So that was part of it, the growth in low code and the success which Microsoft were having in terms of their platform with Power Apps and the wider Power Platform becoming the number one player in the marketplace, as recognized by all the analysts and all the stats which show the uptake. But having become so experienced in building apps, I did find myself often doing the same things repeatedly, whether that's kind of designing a nice looking screen here and there or trying to build a navigation system for a particular app. I found myself repeatedly doing the same task, and I thought there's got to be a better way of doing this. And also, there was many occasions where I had client requirements where maybe Power BI wasn't available, or I needed to come up with something which was a bit more integrated as far as a user journey goes. The customer didn't want to go somewhere else to display the analytics.
Mm-hmm.
And so with those two problems in mind, in terms of creating nicer user experiences faster and having more native data visualization capability in Power Apps, I set forth on trying to address those challenges, and that's where the product came from. I set up a team, and through the component framework which Microsoft brought out, that was really the catalyst for me to do lots of R&D into this space, see what was possible. And having done the feasibility, I realized actually it was now possible to bring to the market some really premium add-on components for Power Apps, which allowed app makers, citizen developers to actually build the next generation of Power Apps in Power Apps. So that's where it came from.
Nice. And it's really impressive what we can achieve with these components from Lowcodera. And maybe for the first glance, some people will not believe that it's really a Canvas app, but it's really nice.
Sure, sure. How do you want to play it? Should I jump into some demos, or what do you think we should do next to show to your audience?
Yeah. Let's get to the hands-on. So if you can showcase the main components, or I don't
Sure.
know, it's up to you.
No problem. As I said, if we need to take a detour or focus in on any particular components, then great. So I've put together this very basic app which I use to demonstrate and present Lowcodera to people when I'm doing it. And this landing page articulates some of the key benefits and features of the product. The first two talk about the components themselves, and these are a set of add-on components which dramatically enhance what you're able to do inside of your Canvas Power Apps today. The components themselves are split into two categories. The first one being UI components. These are focused on creating more usable and prettier apps than is otherwise possible today. So we can go through some of those. And as I mentioned earlier, the other part of it is bringing in some real first-class data visualization components to really visualize your data in your apps without going anywhere else. And then these visualizations are super powerful, super interactive, as you'll see, and of course connect to any data source which you have available in your app, whether it's Dataverse, SharePoint, or a third-party connector that you're perhaps using. All of that data is available for you to build or bind your chart components and visualization components against. We'll also explain the fact that we've built this sort of platform around Lowcodera, and the offering itself is not just about the components themselves. It's about providing users with ready-made starter kits and application templates which they can easily download to expedite the the speed at which they can use the components and build fully finished apps at the end of it. We want to make low code even easier than what it is today. And secondly, we want to bridge the gap between what you can achieve in pro code and low code. And that's the kind of mission behind Lowcodera, that there shouldn't be this difference in results that you see at the end of it. Okay.
Yeah, bringing power to the citizen developers.
That's right. More power. We like more power.
Yeah, more
So
power. More power. That's cool.
more power to the people, as the famous cliche goes. And of course, we'll talk perhaps more about this later. This isn't, we have about around 25 components already available in the portfolio today. But this is an offering which improves almost week on week as we roll out new components, as we roll out new features to these existing components. They are getting more and more powerful. And so the Lowcodera subscription that you get continually improves with new components, new features, plus also the newer templates, which we continually bring out week on week as well. And of course, with so many components and so much functionality, it needs to be documented. And so all of that is, we've got demonstrations, sample things you can copy and paste, and examples you can follow. And if there's time, we'll hopefully show how easy it is to get started with some of our components and quickly start using them, and how to follow some of the examples as well. Okay.
Cool.
So look, I'll throw it across to you. You let me know kind of perhaps which area we can start showing your viewers. Maybe we can go for the UI components to start with. What do you think?
Okay, let's start with the UI components. These cards themselves are amazing.
Yes. Yeah, so this is the Lowcodera cards component on screen at the moment, and so it has an array of configuration options which allow you to style it and present the content. I think I've got one other example here. I think it's this supplier list. I'll open up this app, and it's often, a card is such a common design theme that people use in modern day apps, and they're very universal, can be used for many different use cases. So here's an example where you've got a list of suppliers and you just want to have some key information or metrics presented on the cards, plus some nice imagery. And
And this is
yeah,
inside a gallery.
Yeah,
This works inside the
actually,
gallery.
absolutely. So a lot of our components do work inside of a gallery. This one works particularly well just because often you have items in a data source which you want to represent as cards. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, this is actually wrapped into an out-of-the-box gallery control. And if you really want, and I'd be delighted to show you views, I can show you hopefully within 5 minutes how easy it is to create something stunning using the card component from scratch, from the very beginning. So should we do that next? Just because we're on the card component.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would love to see that. Yeah.
Okay. Right. I've not done this live before, so anything can happen in this demo. But let's be ambitious and see what happens. So what I'm going to do is the only thing I have prepared is an empty app which has nothing in it at the moment. In fact, it looks like I already had it open, so I'll just override that session. And when we go into it, we will see a very empty looking app. So this screen has nothing in it. The only thing I've got, and I won't talk too much about it at the moment, is we have this concept of a master component in Lowcodera, which has to be present in the app. It's called our UI assets component.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk more about this later, perhaps. But this app is this component here is the component which makes all of the other Lowcodera components work inside your app. So it has to be present. And as we'll demonstrate later on, this component expects a token. And if you like, this is our licensing mechanism that we've got in place, which makes sure that you are legitimately entitled to use our components in your app. So if you like, the only thing you need to do is make sure this component is present in your app and you have this token. And we'll demonstrate later where this token comes from. There's a Lowcodera administration portal, and that's the place where this token comes from. And then you literally copy and paste it into this component. What I wanted to demonstrate is how easy it is to create a screen, a good-looking screen inside of your app. So what I'm going to do is I might need to reshare my wider screen. I just want to show you an Excel data source, which I've got pre-prepared here with some data in it. So hopefully your viewers can see this. This data source is a very simple Excel data source with 4 columns inside of it. And actually the data source itself is about the 7 wonders of the world. And I've just got what they are called, a description, what country it belongs to, and I've also got a link to an image for each. So very basic Excel data source. And I'm just going to close that down. And the first thing I'm going to do is get that data source imported into my app. I'm just going to import that from Excel. Here it is. And I'm just going to select the fact that it's got a table. That data source is now part of my app. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to add, so under code components here, when you want to add a Lowcodera components, you go here to get more components. I'm not covering how to download and import the components today in this session, but after you've made the components available in your environment, you'll start seeing them appear here. As I said, there's several Lowcodera components, one of which is the card component. And that component, as you can see now, is available for me to drag onto my canvas. So I can do that, and the card is now here. Now, in this example, actually, I'm just going to get rid of that because I mentioned the point earlier on about the gallery control. So I'm going to just insert, to begin with, a blank gallery control. So I'm sure your viewers have this many times. And all I'm going to do now is actually insert the card component inside of the gallery. So the card component comes blank to begin with, and it has a range of configuration properties down the right-hand side. And we're just going to begin configuring those. But the first thing I'm going to do, like with any gallery control, I'm going to bind it to our data source. So we've already got that imported in. Wonders. Okay, nothing has happened to the card at this moment in time. I'm now going to click on the card, and I'm now going to start setting some of the properties that we have against the card. So the image URL we have in our data source, hopefully, an image column. And straight away, you can see now the card is beginning to take shape. The images are being loaded in. And let's now set some of the other properties. So this item dot, let's go for name, Taj Mahal. In our card, we have a description property. So, and yes, now this is the bit where I'm going to do some changes on the gallery control itself to configure it in a more usable way for what we want in this scenario. So you will know that the gallery control has a wrap count property. I'm just going to set that to 3, and that essentially creates 3 columns, and I'll just make that slightly bigger. And you can immediately see our cards are now rendering beautifully on the screen, and we can space out the gallery, can make our cards a bit wider.
It's already looking awesome.
Yes, so yeah, I didn't have to do much to do this, and I'm just going to edit a couple of other properties here. So Let us add one more property to the card I think I've got, which is tag text. So I think I've got one more item in my data source. Oops. So this item dot country. So we can see what country the wander's from. And I think I've got, so a lot of our components come with icon support. And I'm just going to put in one. And there's lots of icons which are supported because we integrate with the Font Awesome library. So let's just make that slightly bigger. And one more feature is the ability to change colors on a lot of the content itself. So I will just change the tag font color to, you can either put in a hex code or you can put in the name of the color, and you can see that changing right there. So you can play around with the height and things like that, the width, until you're happy with
And
what
everything
you,
adjusts to the space. This is
yeah.
really
Yeah, so
wow.
it's all kind of there. So that is a very basic component, but just to go a step further, I've got this little main section created, and perhaps now I want to add some navigation on the left to my app. So I'm just going to come in here, add another. So we've got a couple of different navigation bar components. This is the vertical one. And I'll just throw that onto the canvas and drag that across. And I'm not actually going to go as far as creating a realistic navigation bar for this particular app. But what I will do is just show your users that we have a website. It's called docs.lowcodera.com. It's linked from the main website, but you can go straight to it. And all of our components are documented here. And even though I've used Lowcodera extensively, I still find myself continually coming back to here to look at the examples and copy and paste the power effects in whenever I need it. So this is our nav bar, and this nav bar component again requires a bit of configuration here where you can define the items in a navigation bar. So I'm just going to copy and paste it across back into my app, and here it is. And all I'm going to do is on the on visible of the screen, I'm going to paste this code in. And this is, if you like, the schema for our navigation component, where you can define your different navigation bar components, navigation bar items here, and then bind it to the nav bar. So I'm just going to bind it to that collection. And then when I reload this screen, you will now see we have a navigation bar, which is nothing to do with this app. But what I could start doing is renaming some of these menu items. So instead of this one being called Employee Corner, this could be called 7 Wonders of the World. We could then maybe have a page for in our app, or a screen for each of these 7 wonders, perhaps. And then you can rename each part of the menu to add your items, and you can even choose an icon. So our menu component here offers a whole bunch of configuration. One of my favorites is being able to choose a background for the background of the vertical navbar itself. So let's just quickly go to Google and go to free backgrounds. Excuse my spelling. And let's just go here and copy the image address. I know this is a site which is free to use, so no worries about licensing or anything on those images. And I'll come back here, and there is on the navbar a property for image URL. if I paste that in there, you can detect there's
Wow.
a bit of a background there right now, which looks quite good, and you can change the theme around. And now I can't see the text, so that means I should adjust the font color of this, which I will do here, to white, and the icon colors to white. So lots of configuration options are available, and you can see how a user experience can quickly come together there. I think that was only a few minutes.
Yeah, and it's really easy to set everything up.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm really impressed.
So there you are with some UI components. Let's go back perhaps to our showcase, and we can demo some other components maybe that you're interested in. We have a bunch of
Yeah, for
other
sure.
ones here. Depending on your interest, we have one of the biggest frustrations with the out-of-the-box controls is the date picker. I'm sure
Yeah.
you've heard the feedback before of people getting confused on what to click on. It's a bit cumbersome to use the out-of-the-box one. So that's one of the other things we've done where people have had issues with particular out-of-the-box components. We've looked to provide an alternative for users. So this date picker control, date time picker control is
Oh,
quite neat. It supports date only or date and time in this case. And we also have something which is more usable when it comes to a mobile. This is a bit more condensed and compact in design for mobile settings. And again, what users often want to do is type in the date, and so they can do that if they wish, as I'm doing there.
well, and you can set up the rules for validation.
Yes, yes. So you can define an input format in kind of what format you want the date to go in, and then of course it will validate against that format, whether it's in a particular locality that you want the input format, because unfortunately this always gets people around the world. Everyone displays times and dates in many different formats, and we support something, we use an underlying JavaScript engine called moment.js, a library.
Mhm.
And so we support all of the formats that come with that particular library. So all the common ones are supported. So
Great.
that's a bit about that. We won't go through all of them just to save some time. So yeah, we have
But
all of these UI components.
one that really uh, catch my attention was Power Grid.
Yes, so this is definitely one of our standout components, and struggling to find it for a second there. So is it
It's
here?
below
Yes,
icons. Yeah.
there it is. Right, so our Power Grid component, we talked earlier on about Excel, I think, in the intro, how many people are coming from Excel, and even users themselves who consume the Power Apps, they're familiar with using Excel. And the out-of-the-box grid experiences that you get in Power Apps, let's just say, don't quite give you the kind of Excel-like experience for your end users. And you have a lot of creative workarounds with people using the gallery control. But
Mhm.
we wanted to create something which just worked out of the box, plug and play, which mimicked Excel like functionality. And this is what we've got with the Lowcodera Power Grid. This is it rendering against a particular SharePoint list, which I think in this use case is talking about apps on the Windows Store. I believe that's where I got this data source from. It has features like infinite scrolling. So as you scroll down, more and more records load, and it's quite quick. But really the power of it comes in terms of some of the features like being able to search. You can type in on top of a column and it will bring back results from your data source. Being able to filter on a column, you can do that. as you can see, you've got many different categories of apps, and you can start selecting, deselecting, and instantly the table itself starts filtering. You can, if you want to do maybe a composite set of filters, you can bring open this filter panel and you can see you can start combining these filters together. So you can, in this use case, look at specific categories of apps which maybe have a particular price point, whether they're free or paid. You can filter on those. So many different features are available in this grid. It is loaded with functionality. You can, of course, sort your data just by clicking on the category or any column for that matter. You can see that data being sorted in ascending and descending order. You can do it for this numeric column, and you can see that instantly being reflected as I click onto those columns. So lots of searching, filtering options are available. You can see here we support a number of different data types. In this use case here, this is about ratings of apps. So you can actually, instead of having boring numbers displayed, you can have some stars to show those, reflect those ratings. We've got an integrated calendar if you've got dates in your grid. So that's there. We have conditional formatting. So you can see here, we've got a rule that's been set up. Anything lower than a certain threshold gets colored in red. You can select particular rows and then implement some, wider business logic to perform against these rows which have been selected. You can even perform row grouping based on a column. So if I wanted to look at my data by category, you can now see the results organized instantly by that, and your users can drag and drop different columns onto there. So
it's like a pivot table almost.
It's like a pivot table indeed. And yeah, there's just so much functionality in here that there's not enough time to talk through them. One of my favorite features is, especially for people in Excel, they say when they want to edit their data, they don't just want to do it one cell at a time. Can we bulk edit data? Well, in here we just go into the cell. If we've allowed editing for users, they can edit one cell and they can use the fill handle to drag down, and you can see all of those changes have now been instantly reflected onto the rows below that. And if I hit the save button, in this case, these changes will be instantly saved back to the original data source. In this case, it's SharePoint. So lots of functionality on this grid. There's probably about 15, 20 upwards mini features which we could talk about.
Wow, and it works with any data source.
That's right. So wherever your data is, whether it's SharePoint, Dataverse, SQL, or some other tabular format that you've got your data set hooked up to, then yeah, you can bind our grid to that.
Wow, brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah. So yeah, that's probably certainly our most powerful UI component, just by virtue of the amount of functionality that comes with it. So yeah, should we look at some visualization components?
Yeah, what about the charts?
Yeah, so look, the best way of demonstrate the charts is by perhaps just showing a couple of demos of these charts. So let's start with a roadmap component. And this is to visualize time series data. So you can look at this by year, month, quarter. And this is not just in this case here, a static visual. You can actually manipulate the data if you wish in real time as you're presenting this. So if you're doing this presentation and you've got a bunch of people who are reviewing this, you can say, actually, this needs to shift out into November. And I can just drag it across there. and you can then commit that change to the data source. This is a very interactive visual, which we've done here. So we've got more of these style visuals coming, and the other bread and butter ones that we've got are our chart visuals. And if I can just load, in fact, I think I've already got one on display here. So this is some of our chart components on display here. And this particular example we've built as a responsive app. So if I minimize it, you will see this going into a weird set of dimensions. So let me
Wow.
just hide that and bring that back onto screen. That same app.
This is amazing because I think another struggle that developers have is to make everything responsive, and
Yeah,
if something that the component deliver itself, wow,
yeah,
it saves a
yeah.
lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, you still need to respect the kind of infrastructure of the app itself, and ultimately, we're trying to make it as easy as possible to design a responsive app. So a lot of these components are responsive in nature themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and you still need to, if you're doing it in the most optimized way, you still want to use the containers and so forth
All right.
approach to design your screens. But then once the components are there, they will take care of the rest themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
another neat feature is our dark mode on our charts. So you can instantly see there through a dynamic variable, we've set the charts to dark. Our chart components are truly interactive. So, when we talk about, things like the legend, when you're looking at multiple series, as you hover over the legend, you can see things being highlighted, or you can turn them off in this case, just to focus on particular data series that you're interested in. When you like a bit like Power BI, when you hover over certain things, you can see
Yeah,
things flying in your face. So yes, lots of interactivity. And you might be wondering what this button up here is on this chart. We
what is that?
also, so that allows users, if you wish, to download the charts into a few different formats. So an image format, SVG or PNG, or you can even allow users to download the underlying data source. So if I click on that,
Wow.
you instantly see the download, and there you are. There's your chart within a split second as an image if you want to take that elsewhere or do whatever you wish with that.
This is really useful.
Yeah. So
Oh.
that is there as well. And I mentioned earlier on, we are very much looking to create more and more out of the box templates for users which they can follow. And I guess this bit leads nicely onto the Lowcodera admin portal, which is once something that's available to people once they've signed up to Lowcodera.
Mm-hmm.
And the admin portal is the place where once you've signed up, you can download your components, and it's the bit where I referred to it earlier on. You can generate these tokens, which are used in your apps to essentially license the usage of Lowcodera components in your apps. And it's very simple. You essentially come into your admin portal and you generate tokens from here, and you copy and paste those into, they get copied into your clipboard automatically when you click on these buttons, and then you paste them into your UI assets component from here, and you're able to use those. But the point I was making, and we'll maybe come back to the licensing later, is in our download sections, not only can you download the components, you can download lots of apps and starter kits and templates for our components if you want to learn how to use them or start using them in your own apps, which you're using to build Lowcodera components from. So if you
Mm-hmm.
like, this is the Lowcodera App Store, which is included in the subscription. And we're adding to this all the time. So let's see if I have an example which can go back to. and that is which one is it? It is. I've got so many apps here that I am struggling to find them. In fact, the reason why I can't find it here is that it is in another environment. So I'll just load it up here. I've got it open on another screen. So this is one of our newer templates, which actually we're building at the moment. And a common scenario in a business is plotting risks or logging risks in a business. Typically, these are logged in an Excel spreadsheet. What we've done here and increasingly are looking to do is create these very simple apps for various business processes. So if you want a basic risk logging system, then this is it. It will not only allow you to register and log your risks, it will then allow you to visualize your risks against that. And again, we are building these as responsive templates. So as your screen size reduces itself, you can see that all being adjusted in real time. And again, highly interactive. So this is plotting risks by different department. There's a heat map which shows the severity of the risks in your business. You can actually plot the risks on a roadmap depending on when they're going to get solved and when they're likely to how long they are hanging around for. And we're just, very much experimenting with UX possibilities and things like that as well. So we've got our grid component for bulk editing your risks and things. And you will be well aware, typically in businesses, they have Excel spreadsheets predominantly that undertake these types of processes. And we want to show that you don't need to rely on those boring spreadsheets anymore. You can turn those simple spreadsheets into far more interactive and engaging apps for your users.
Yeah, true. There's no reason to use Excel spreadsheets anymore if you got something as easy as this and as effective as this.
That's right. So the point here I was making is we're going to be loading the Lowcodera store with more and more first-party templates. And as we grow our community, we would love for them to submit their creative ideas and apps in there as well for the benefit of everyone else.
Right. And you showed something like a form, a few screens before.
Yes, I was just quickly.
That is also a component, or each object is a different component.
Yeah, so there's a few different Lowcodera components in here. So we have a text box. The text box is appearing a few times in here. Plus, we've got a button component at the bottom. We have a drop-down menu component appearing here, plus our date picker, which we showcased earlier on. So the real power in Lowcodera is when you combine and fuse together many of our components to work together inside of an app. So you can see here, some subtle things that we do. If it's a numeric field, we're able to do small things like have this little button on the side where you can go up and down, as well as typing things in, and then you can perform validation against a numeric field and show warnings and things like that. So lots of little tiny features in some of our components, which is in the detail.
And it takes a lot of time and effort to achieve something like that using out of the box stuff. And this is really a pain that I have, and I believe other developers have as well.
Yeah, and that's it. We wanted to take the pain away. The idea is focus on the business logic, and that's what citizen developers are. They have the domain business knowledge. They understand the business process. They have some Excel-like skills. They are not, necessarily always creative. So let's take that burden away from them and allow them to really impress their stakeholders with really attractive user experiences at the end of it, as well as good application logic in their low-code apps.
Yeah. Do you guys have estimative of how many time developers will save by using these components?
Yeah, so look, and this is, very early data that we've got based on a few of our early adopters. And of course, it depends on the type of apps that they're building. But typically, we're seeing, just take the example of a navigation bar and building that as a component, reusing that. We are seeing one customer put it to me the other day. I don't know how they got to the answer, but they think that their development of their apps is now 30 to 40% faster than what it was, but not just faster, the quality of what they're producing is obviously better as well in terms of what the end product looks like as well. So they're able to build more apps now with their time faster, and they're able to start creating some consistency between their apps is as well, because with our templates and things like that, they get the inspiration they need. They create these sort of starter kits for themselves with their own colors and brands, and then they suddenly have a system or a framework that they can work within to create all of their apps. So we're getting some very good feedback on that. And we haven't got time today. There's one or two neat features which we've implemented to save people's time. So I think I mentioned earlier on, we have the master component in the UI assets. And I don't know if I've got an app open. Probably not. Okay, maybe this one will have to do. But if I go here, our UI assets component has a font property. And if I change that, I'll change it to something horrible, Korean U. If I go back to the second screen, you will now notice all of our UI components have inherited that font. So we are fast creating, if you like, a centralized branding engine for Power Apps. And we're just getting started with this, which allows people to, in a central place, just change one or two things and radically change the rest of their app. So whether that's things like dark mode or colors or fonts being used, all of that will be driven through our master component. So a few clicks and suddenly you can make your app look very different. So these are the time savings that we are really
Wow.
looking to introduce.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And as you said, it's not just the time, the quality of the delivery is going to another level. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think we could ever build something like Power Grid using just out of the box components. So uh, you're raising the bar, bringing the game to another level. It's really cool.
That's the idea. And all I can say to you and your viewers is we've got a lot more coming. There's many more components which are in production, and when perhaps we can maybe do some subsequent sessions as well where I can demonstrate what's coming down the pipe, because we've got some very exciting new components which are close to being released as well, which I'm sure will be equally, if not even more exciting than the ones we've already got. So
Wow.
yeah.
Now
So
you got me really curious now. For sure, we
yes,
can do
it's
as
top
many
secret.
sessions as you want.
Yes. So yeah. Any other questions that we can support your viewers
Yeah.
with the answers to?
Yeah, so for people to understand, if I want to start out with Lowcodera, how do I do that?
Okay. So one piece of exclusive news I can give you today, because we haven't even announced this yet, we're going to be announcing it next week, is if you hop over to lowcodera.com, which is our website, this is the place where, of course, you can learn more about Lowcodera, all of our features and so forth, and each of our components is documented here. Right now, you can sign up to a free 14-day trial. There's no credit card or anything like that needed, and you can use all of the features within that 14 days, no problem. and then you can upgrade to one of our paid plans. The way our licensing model works is that we are licensing our components by the number of apps that you want to use the components in. A lot of other, if you like, business models or subscription models are based on the amount of users who use the service. In our case, in each of our plans, it's unlimited users. So if you've got hundreds of people using your app, then that's no problem. All you have to do is, for your business, buy the right plan according to the amount of apps you're likely to build using our components. We start off with our basic starter offering at $199 per year. That entitles you to 5 apps. We have some very good discounts on at the moment to celebrate our launch, which gives you 30% off all of these prices. Our business plan, which entitles you to 20 apps, is only $499. And the exclusive announcement, which we've not announced yet, is next week we will be launching a free developer edition of the product, which is completely free, has access to all the features in Lowcodera, is unlimited in use as far as app makers and developers are going. So you can, in-app studio, which is this environment here. This is App Studio, of course. You can build as many apps and test those apps out here. It's only when you want to publish your app and allow users into it do you need to generate what we call an app token or go onto a paid plan. But our free plan from next week will allow people to use Lowcodera unlimited, learn about it, experiment with the components, build their apps in App Studio, get really comfortable with it all without any pressure of a trial or a trial running out. Because we're really keen to build up our community. We want as many people using Lowcodera as possible. We want as much feedback, creativity, ideas from that community as quickly as possible. And only when you're ready to make that commitment onto a paid plan, it's only at that moment do you actually need to do that. So that's the big news from next week.
Wow, this is really awesome news. For sure, I will subscribe for that. And I think I mentioned to you that I have a education program here in Brazil. And for sure, all of our students are going to try that as well, because it's really amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's a bit about how you get the product and some of our forward plans about making it more available and accessible to all at every level, whether you're just a developer, whether you're in a company that actually wants some production apps. There's a package, hopefully, that will meet your needs.
Great. And you can use as many components as you want, but
100%.
you have the limitation of the number of apps, right?
Exactly. So if you've got a paid plan, your restrictions are based on the amount of apps you want to use that in. And so if you buy the starter plan, it means you can only build 5 production apps, where the portal I mentioned earlier on, you have a dashboard which shows you how many tokens you can generate and how many you've used. And you've got 2 options. If you buy a plan and you run out of tokens, you can actually buy individual tokens from us. That's probably a bit more expensive, or you can upgrade to a wider plan. What I'd say to people is that we are often and are planning to run promotions throughout the year, and we are really keen to reward our most active users, where we see people with really creative apps and using our components in creative ways. Our commitment to them is don't worry about running out of ad tokens, because we'll reward you with even more tokens if you adopt Lowcodera in your apps, because that helps the community, it helps take us forward, it gives us new ideas. So we're looking to reward people. The more people that we see using Lowcodera, the more we will reward and give them incentives with app tokens.
Wow, that's a really great idea. it's going to work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing is, yes, when you buy your subscription, it includes access to anything new we release. Almost every 2 weeks we're releasing new features, and in a lot of cases it will also be new components. So we've got 25 at the moment, more than 25. I'm losing count, and we're expecting to have a lot more in this calendar year by the end of it. So that will continue to be added to your subscription as they arrive.
Great. I'm really curious to see the next components being released.
Yes, for sure. Anything else?
Yeah, I think that's it. Do you have any final thoughts to share
No,
for our audience?
no, just thank you again for having me on. And if there's any questions that your viewers have, by
Mm-hmm.
all means, feel free to contact me on LinkedIn, connect with me. Of course, I have to give our company page on LinkedIn a plug. Please follow us. We're relatively new, and we want to establish a community across the world. And we're just super keen. We're passionate about Power Apps. And we're always interested in what people are doing, what types of apps that they're building. So feel free to connect with us, and we'll be delighted to tell you more and exchange ideas.
Great. Once again, Rahan, thanks for having me, for making yourself available for this chat. I'm really excited with Lowcodera, and I think all of our audience is going to be as well. So thank you.
I hope so. Thank you so much. You have a good evening now, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Okay, you as well.
See you later.
See ya.
See you. Bye.